So, House of the Dragon Season 2 is officially over, and now we get to wait like 2 years for Season 3. So... And as sad as that is to wait 2 years, at least we had this season, and this season was fantastic, specifically this finale, which is what this video will focus on. Today, I'm going to be talking about the finale, as you read by the title, going beat for beat in spoiler debt, so if you don't want spoilers to the episode, you can leave now. And just giving you my thoughts on the finale, and then tomorrow I will upload another video talking about the season as a whole and my actual thoughts, big picture-wise, on how I think it matches up to Season 1 and give my overall rating of the season. For today's episode, we're just going to talk about the finale, and as you read by the title, I thought it was pretty good. So the finale of House of the Dragon Season 2, if I'm honest, is not what I expected. Because the show, at least considering where the book was at this point, is very close to some very big things happening in this story. There are some major story beats about to occur, literally like the next episode, maybe. And I was trying to figure out which one of those beats this season would end on. I had a couple in mind that I won't spoil here in case you haven't read the book, but you've watched the episode. But they made the bold decision to end this season without any of those major beats, any of those major moments happening this season. And I would have hated that if you told me this a week ago. But after watching this episode, I think it was the right move. Because not only is Season 3 going to have an incredible first couple episodes, it also allowed for this ending of this season to feel like an awesome, amazing war cliffhanger. This episode had so many great moments, despite the fact that, yet again, not too much happened in it when it comes to the overall story of the Dance of the Dragons. This was an episode with a lot of things that happened that didn't really happen in the book, at least not detailed. And there are some things I don't love about the episode. First things first, you get like a really big storyline with Tywin Lannister and him going to recruit some pirates to help break the blockade of King's Landing, and I understand why this might be significant in the coming episodes of Season 3 and in, by the time we get to the end of the show, but why? I mean, Tywin is, not that interesting of a character. Neither is his twin. I know that he's a Lannister and all, but this was just kind of a weird thing to throw in the finale since we hadn't really been following this kind of story arc at all in the season. But we do get a lot of that. But what we get around that is a lot of other stuff that's awesome. For example, Rhaenyra kind of dealing with the dragon seeds, dealing with these people, these commoners that have tamed dragons. And of course, you have two of them, Adam of Hull and Hugh Hammer, who are kind of, they're accustomed to some of the higher nobility trainings and teachings, so they're kind of respectful. They're nice guys. But then you have Ulf, who's he's kind of what we would all be, I think, if we were in this situation. He doesn't give a shit. He's like the Deadpool of the House of the Dragon universe. Just does not give a fuck. And I love it. So we see her kind of trying to deal with these people and tame them, if you want to use that word, and also Jace deal with these people because he feels slighted by his mother. He's this guy who is this secret bastard, and his only claim to the throne was his dragon, and now you have bastards and random people who now have dragons, so what claim does he have? And there's a great scene with him and Baela Targaryen, who, reminder, is his, future wife-to-be, and they have a great conversation where she's like, do you really think you're the only bastard in Westeros history that has claimed the throne, that has claimed, to be a lord and take over the family? Like, clearly you're not the only one. It doesn't matter what you actually are. All that matters is what everybody thinks you are. It's the name. In the great words of Corlys Velaryon, they don't remember blood, they remember names, and that is all that matters. This episode, we finally get the conclusion to Daemon's storyline that's been going on this whole season with Harrenhal. Thank God. Not that the Harrenhal stuff was bad, it just felt so redundant after a while, and finally we get in this episode, Rhaenyra flies to Harrenhal. Daemon has raised this entire army, and she confronts Daemon. But before this scene, we had another big moment with Daemon where Alice Rivers takes him over to kind of that big tree, the big first man tree. I know there's a name for it that I'm forgetting. But he touches the tree, and he essentially sees Game of Thrones. He sees the future. And this is a cool scene, because there's some Easter eggs. You see the three-eyed raven, who at this time is Bloodraven. A character who at this point is not born in this world, and is obviously the three-eyed raven that Bran meets in the future. But he is a Targaryen, at least a Targaryen bastard in a way, and he is a very important character to the future of Game of Thrones, and I hope we see in more depth in future series, maybe in The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, because he is around then. But you see him, and you also see the White Walkers, and Daemon sees the coming tragedy that is Game of Thrones Season 8, and he says, no, we have to win this war to stop that from happening. Honestly, the best thing Daemon could do to prevent Game of Thrones Season 8 from happening is to kill himself and Rhaenyra. Go ahead, Aegon, continue being king, why not? Oh, how simple things would be. We also wouldn't have had the first few great seasons of Game of Thrones, so whatever. And before you're like, oh, you just spoiled, of course Rhaenyra's gonna win the war. Haha, not so fast. It's more complicated than that, so keep watching. I didn't spoil shit. But yeah, I thought that scene was cool. It's obviously just an Easter egg. There's also a moment in that scene where you kind of see Daenerys, I think, at least. I thought you were gonna see Emily Clark. I thought she was gonna come in and, like, speak to Daemon from the future, which probably would have been stupid. Now that I think about it, that would have been stupid. It's just kind of like fan service, like, hey, you remember Daenerys? Either way, I thought it was a cool scene. And then finally Rhaenyra goes and she meets with Daemon, and there's a great scene where he's pretty much like, I've seen the future. There are more important things than my ambitions to be king. So yeah, I love you, I'll bend the knee, and let's unite the realm so we can get ready to fight the White Walkers and prevent Season 8 of Game of Thrones. And it's a great scene, and when Daemon turns and he starts rallying up the troops and saying, we fight for our queen, we fight, I got out of my bed and I started cheering. I'm not going to lie to you. It felt like watching Return of the King for the first time. It was just a badass fantasy scene with the music, with the cheering. I was ready to go to war for Daemon and Rhaenyra in that scene. It was just, that is what I like from fantasy. When I feel energized by some fake shit that is happening on my screen, and that scene made me feel that way. So with Rhaenyra having all of her dragons, what are the Greens up to? Because they're kind of fucked. Well, Larys Strong, you know, the guy with the foot fetish, he goes to Aegon and he says, hey, we might lose this war. We should get the hell out of here. And Aegon's like, wouldn't it just be better to stay here and die and lose with honor? And Larys is like, I have a feeling maybe you'll have a chance to win it later? Maybe? Or maybe I just want to see your feet? I don't really know. So he convinces him to leave. They're gone. Aemon Targaryen, Aemon the prick, Aemon the prince, you know, regent, whatever they call him. The one guy that if he were to just die, the show would be so short. He's trying to convince his sister, who has one of the largest and best dragons in Westeros, to get on that dragon and go fight. Let's go fight and win this war. And she's like, nah, don't do that shit. I'm weird. I like bugs and telling the future. I don't like killing people, so good luck. So Aemon goes off, he burns some towns, he gets all mad, and yeah, that's what Aemon's up to. Helaena, though, kind of spoils the entire show at one point. Helaena, like, if you look in the background of one of her scenes, I think you could see an entire collection of Fire and Blood, the book that this show is based off of, and the entire Game of Thrones series. She's seen all of it. Because there's a scene where she just kind of breaks down what's going to happen. So beware if you're watching the show when you see that scene, because she tells you exactly what's going to happen in this show. I was stunned when I heard it, because they've had her tell the future before in, like, metaphorical ways throughout the series, and every time she has done it, she's been right. She's predicted the future. She does it here in a not-so-metaphorical way, and yeah, she's right. Just thought that was crazy. Thought that was bizarre that they threw that in there, but fucking who cares at this point? I mean, the book's out there. I mean, Joffrey spoils the entire show in Game of Thrones, so it is what it is. But Aemon kind of knows that this war, he's in a bad spot, because Rhaenyra has all these dragons, and he's got one, and of course it's the biggest, baddest dragon in the world, and he's very smart, ferocious, but, like, he's just in a bad spot, and Alicent knows this, because then she goes to meet with Rhaenyra, and she tells Rhaenyra, hey, I was wrong, people died, my bad. And Rhaenyra says, well, my bads don't really work, because he started the war, and now I kind of have to finish the war. I don't really have a choice. And she said, listen, I'll give you the throne, okay? I'll give you everything you want. We'll let you in. No fight. Aemon will be away. She says, cool. What about Aegon, though? She goes, he's a cripple. He won't bother you. Leave him alone. You can leave him alone. And Rhaenyra goes, no, I'm gonna have to kill your son in a very public and brutal way, and then I'm going to have to take his head, and I'm going to have to use it as a volleyball to play, you know, fun Game of Thrones Westeros volleyball with. We might even play soccer with it. We're gonna do terrible things with your son's head. She goes, if you do that, if you let me do that, war's over, I win, you get to live with your daughter, and we're all happy. And Alicent's like, oh my god, that's terrible. I can't do that. Fuck it, sure, kill him. Guy's a bastard, I hate him. So yeah, Alicent pretty much, you know, allows for her son to be killed by Rhaenyra and promises to sell over the kingdom to Rhaenyra to avoid a major war. Only thing is, Aegon's not even in King's Landing anymore, so be interesting to see how that plays out. But we get a badass ending to this episode where it just shows all of the armies of Westeros kind of coming in towards the middle of the map. All the armies we know are coming, and we get a badass scene where all the themes of all of these armies, the classic themes, are played. You see the Hightower army, and you see Darren's dragon with Darren on top of him. Darren, who has not been cast yet, so we can't see him. Darren, the son that everybody forgot about, but he's there, and he's flying on his dragon, and the Hightower army is marching. You see the Starks and the Stark music music from Game of Thrones begins to play. All the old beards, these badass motherfuckers that are coming down for some blood. They've seen too many winters and they'd rather die in the south than live through another one. Too many mouths to feed. You see the Lannister army, and of course, you have the Reigns of Castamere playing, which is not a deserving theme of the current Lannisters. They have not earned that theme. That theme was earned by Tywin Lannister. These Lannisters are not Tywin. But it was still badass, and you just see all these armies kind of coming together as one. You get beautiful shots of Rhaenyra, who's essentially already won the war. She just needs to not do something silly. And that's all I'll say. As long as she doesn't do some silly nonsense, she wins the war very easily. And you see Alicent looking out, believing that she's kind of succeeded in achieving freedom for her and her daughter, despite the fact that she just agreed to have her son beheaded. I feel like most of this could have been avoided if Rhaenyra was just like, we'll send Aegon to the wall. How about that? Beautiful, wonderful idea. But it is the coming of war. Oh, also, Rhaena, she gets the dragon. Sheep Stealer, whatever the hell the dragon's name is. That's different from the book. Interested to see where that goes. But yeah, a lot of the major beats that, yet again, I won't spoil, that are about to happen in the show. Some major moments did not happen this season. And I was surprised by that, but you know what? I'm happy they didn't, because this instead ended on a much different note than it would have ended if one or two of those beats had happened. It ends maybe not on a happy note, but on an exciting note. We're excited to see these armies clash. We're excited to see Rhaenyra get to the throne. What's going to happen with Aemond? What's going to happen with all these characters? It seems like insurmountable odds for the Greens at this point, but obviously we're going to have another season, so there are going to be twists and turns along the way with these characters. What's going to happen with Daemon? With the future with the White Walkers? How are we going to erase Season 8 from the history books? There are so many questions that need to be answered, and Season 3 will answer them. In 2 years, I will be 25 when Season 3 comes out. Oh my god! Will we even have a planet? Like, the odds, there are better odds, I think, of us all being dead from a nuclear war than seeing Season 3 of this show. I'm a very positive, hopeful person, guys, if you couldn't tell. I love this episode, though. I thought this finale was great. I thought it was as good as Season 1's finale, at least when it comes to building hype for the next season. It had a lot of great moments that I wasn't expecting. It had a lot of great character moments. That scene with Daemon rallying the troops and bending the knee to Rhaenyra is just so amazing and so beautifully done, and the character development there is second to none, and they did not have a lot to go off on Daemon on the books at this point, because in the books, it's literally like, Daemon's at Harrenhal, there you go. And in this season, it was like, Daemon's at Harrenhal, going through some shit. So we get to see, though, going through some shit, and some of it worked, and some of it didn't, and by the end, though, we got a satisfying conclusion to it all. And yes, I'm excited, man. This season was awesome. This episode was great. This season had some, some lumps in it that I'll go over in tomorrow's video, but overall, I am satisfied. I love Game of Thrones, and at the very least, we don't have to wait 2 years for Game of Thrones content. Next year, we will be getting a Game of Thrones show called The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is, of course, going to be a very different kind of show. It's not going to be a big show about a gigantic war for the crown. Instead, it's going to be a smaller story about Dunk and Egg, and what that means. I won't spoil for you, but it's about two guys going on an adventure throughout the Seven Kingdoms. It should be fun. So we won't have to wait 2 full years, and maybe in these 2 years, maybe we'll get The Winds of Winter, and we could really undo Season 8 of Game of Thrones. A boy could dream. What comes out first, House of the Dragon Season 3 or Winds of Winter? Let's start taking bets. Leave your comments down below. What comes out first? Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more notifications. I post every single day on this channel, so please stick around. I'll be posting every day this week, so why not come by again?